Hey everybody, how you doing today? I have Burhaan Pattell here, and he's a good friend of mine. I wanted to reach out to him today to talk a little bit more about website analytics because I think it's something that is very confusing for people. So Burhaan, could you just tell me a little bit about what you do daily in your work?
So I'm a digital marketer. I call myself a digital marketing expert on LinkedIn and everywhere else. I have a company that actually does everything digital marketing. So from building websites, landing pages, optimizing funnels, Facebook ads, Google ads, and all the tracking and conversions that goes along with all of that. And then also email marketing and email, not necessarily copy, but the automation of email.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So what I come in contact a lot in my work is that part of my process as a copywriter is that I always request of my clients for any data that they have on their website or any analytics that they might have on their website. And a lot of the times I come in contact with business owners who are completely overwhelmed. They know that they should download Google Analytics or something like that. So they do, but then they open up their dashboard and they just have all this information coming at them, and they don't know what it's telling them, what they should focus on, and then how to take that data and actually do something with it. So I was just wondering if you could talk to us today a little bit about what are some things that a business owner who's brand new to Google Analytics, what are the important things for them to focus on?
Well, I think even before they focus on anything, I think it's just making sure that it's set up properly because, Google Analytics, it's a tool that tracks visitors on your website and tracks behavior. And so if that tool isn't set up properly using the tracking code that Google Analytics gives you and all the pages on the website are not being tracked, then the data is not going to be accurate, right? It's not going to be a true representation of what's actually going on your website. So that's step one in my mind. And then to answer your question, I think it's a case of saying, well, what's important to you as a business, right? What is your website tailored to do? What have you set it up to do? And then looking at the data that would help you figure out whether that goal is actually being achieved through the data that Google Analytics gives you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So really quickly, is there, depending on the business, should your website be set up differently, or are people basically going to want to set it up the same way to kind of heat map the activity on their site?
Well, yeah, so you use the word heat map, and actually Google Analytics took away the heat map functionality.
Oh, really?
Its version of heat mapping about a year ago, and people were really disappointed by that, because that was a really helpful piece to Google Analytics. But yeah, it's a case of, if you own an e-commerce store, then you definitely want to activate or enable the e-commerce functionality. Because, for example, if you've got Shopify, you put your Google tracking code on your Shopify store, and then it automatically and obviously enable the e-commerce settings on your analytics account. And then all your conversions would get tracked. Okay. So, conversions in terms of how many sales you have, how many abandoned carts you have, what's your conversion rate, what the value of those orders are. And Google Analytics will give you all of that data, just the same as if you would see it inside of your Google dashboard, in your Shopify dashboard.
Okay.
But the difference is now you can track the behaviors in terms of, well, people are visiting my site. What's the bounce rate? What's the exit rate? What are the behaviors? So that's for, e-commerce and Shopify specifically.
Yeah.
And then to answer the question on the other side is, if you have a consulting business and let's say your goal is to get phone calls, right? Yeah. You want to get people to fill in maybe an opt-in form to download an ebook and then get them to book a phone call with you. You can track all of those activities through your analytics account, provided it's set up properly.
Okay. So with different businesses, are there still going to be key metrics across the board, across different verticals and industries that it's basically going to be made up the same way when it comes to analytics? You mentioned bounce rate. Is that something that no matter what your settings are, you're always going to be focused on bounce rate?
Yes. So, the bounce rate is the percentage of people that are leaving a specific page that have come from another page on the website. So basically the second page that they're visiting. Excuse me. And if people are leaving quickly or your bounce rate is really high on that page, then chances are that content or whatever you've got on that page is not engaging enough, is not something that they're interested in. They're not taking the time to actually consume what you've got there. So, it's an indication of whether you should make any tweaks, or maybe your video on that page is not working, or, whatever that case may be. Maybe the graphics are in the wrong place. It's people don't like it, so they leave.
And so when it comes to messaging and the bounce rate, that's on your homepage. Wherever they're landing on your homepage, that bounce rate is telling you that your homepage needs some work, and that in some regard it's weak somewhere, whether it be in your copy or your media or a little bit of everything. Correct?
Yeah, 100%. It's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what the issue is, but it's an indication of the fact that there is an issue, and then you can start looking at other metrics to say, okay, what is the issue? So one of the other metrics is the average duration that they're on the page. So if bounce rate is high, let's say anywhere above 60-70%, and they're only spending a few seconds on the page, then there's definitely an issue, because there's maybe the page is really short, and so there's not much to do there. But if the page is longer and you have a video and they're only spending a few seconds, like, they're obviously not watching the video. So yeah.
Okay, so bounce rate is one, and then the next one you said is time spent on the page, correct? That's another key analytic that they should be looking at?
100%.
Okay, so if their bounce rate is okay, and now they're looking at time spent on the page, and that is showing a really skewed, metric, then what problem does that point to in your mind?
Well, let's say I use the example of a video. So if the video is, say, 15 minutes long, and they're only consuming 2 minutes, or the average duration is 2 minutes, then you need to look at maybe the video. And obviously, if your video is on YouTube, hosted on YouTube or Vimeo, you can also look at those stats to see how long people are playing that video for, or how long they're consuming it for.
Yeah.
Compared to how long they're spending on the page, and then say, okay, well, maybe the content in the video isn't 100%. Maybe you need to tweak the first few minutes so that you keep people engaged. And you need to analyze that and see what's going on.
And what would you consider I guess there isn't really a base number that would tell somebody that my time on page is too short or too, it really would depend on what the content is on that page then.
Right.
Like you said, if a video is 10 minutes long, you want people to at least be on your site for 10 minutes because it's telling you that they're watching your video.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for SEO, the longer people on your website, doesn't matter what page they're on, the better. It's the same as a YouTube channel with more views or longer, people watching the video for longer. Google looks at that as one of the metrics for SEO. And, let's say on a specific page, your bounce rate is average, but your duration is short, but they spent maybe 5 minutes on a different page, maybe a sales page, or maybe there's a different video on a different page. And the session is all the pages that they visited, equates to 5 minutes or longer, or whatever that, duration is, the better, basically.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. So right now we have bounce rate and duration on page. Is there any other, key kind of indicators that could help somebody, troubleshoot some site problems?
Yeah, I mentioned exit rate also earlier. So exit rate is slightly different to bounce rate, and people get confused by these two metrics because they sound similar, and in the mind it sounds like they mean the same thing. But an exit, and the percentage of people that are exiting a page is, let's say people visited 3 pages, and you're looking at one page, the last page that they visited, that's the page that they exit from. So they're closing their browser, or they're leaving your page to go to another website. That's the page that they exit from. So it's important also to see, well, if they're exiting on, let's say, a thank you page, that makes sense, right?
Right.
You've delivered the ebook, that's the last page in your funnel, and so that exit rate would be high because that's where people are going to be leaving. Right. But if they're exiting on the home page and they're spending only a minute, and it's not a good sign. You need people to stay longer. You want them to browse to other pages so that they don't exit as much from your homepage as any other page on the website.
So when the exit rate is high, it's telling you as as a business owner that you're not guiding people properly through where you want them to go on your website, essentially.
Correct. So they may hit a wall, or they're hitting a wall in terms of they're not sure what to do next. Maybe your menu structure, maybe your menu structure is confusing, so they get confused. They're looking for something. They came to the website for a specific reason. They didn't find what they wanted to, and so they leave.
Yeah.
But they leave in such a way that they don't go to another page. They just go somewhere else completely.
Yeah, definitely. And from a copy perspective, now I know that there's many different. Sorry about that.
No.
There are many different pieces that make up why a person wouldn't stay on the page. Like you had mentioned, it could be your video, it could be your graphics, it could be your button colors, it could be a lot of different things. But from a copy perspective, my first inclination when the exit rate is really high is that you're not conveying the message properly in your call to actions, what you want people to do next. And so sometimes people get confused. They don't understand if they should fill out a form, if they should pick up the phone and call you, if they should just click order and buy something. And so from a copy perspective, that's where I would say, okay, we need to dial in these call to actions. We need to be very clear in our directions to people.
And to add to that, I think in terms of flow, people get the flow of a page wrong a lot of the time, because there's a certain thought process that goes behind. If you've got a sales page, you're wanting the information in a certain way or in a certain sequence that makes sense to you as a buyer or as somebody who's consuming the content. Use a silly example, but let's say you've got a blog post and you put the conclusion at the top. It's why would you that's not giving anybody a reason to read the rest of the post. Right. So sure, you can do a summary in the introduction, but you've got to leave it open to say, oh, that sounds interesting. What else is there? And so they go further down the blog post.
Yeah.
So the structure.
Yeah. From a product's perspective, it could be that, somebody wants to be educated about the product. Then maybe they want to read testimonials about somebody else who's already purchased the product and experienced it. And then we can bring them to a buying decision from that point. And that makes sense, like you said, from a flow perspective.
100%. And to tie it into bounce rate and exit rate is if your bounce rate and your exit rate are really high on that page, then maybe one of the things is not necessarily changing the copy, but changing the order of where things appear.
Yeah, definitely.
Based on what the logical flow is, or maybe let's use a completely illogical flow and let's give people what they're looking for. Let's say there's an objection. Let's put the objection up front so they overcome that objection when they read that or see it, and then they move further down the page, and that gives you better statistics.
And where would you tell people to start? Like, let's say they take a look at their analytics and they realize it's a hot mess. Do you recommend that people make, kind of sweeping changes, or should they focus on one thing at a time? I'm sure that there's probably different schools of thought around this, but what's your opinion on how the best to do that?
So for me, or one of the things that I focus on, especially when I'm onboarding a new client and look at the Google Analytics account first off, is first looking at how much traffic is actually coming to the site. Because based on the size of your website, in terms of page visitors, that'll tell you how long it's going to take to actually figure out whether a change works or not. Because if you make a change, let's say you've got 20 people come to your website every day, and if those are converting, then that's fine. But most likely it's too little traffic. And so it's going to take you a long time when maybe you move or you change your hero to be an opt-in, a different opt-in. Let's just use a simple example. You need a lot more people visiting your site, or maybe visiting a landing page, to be able to really deduce whether those changes are going to be made.
Right. And so that's an interesting point that you make, because that's another way that people can tell, where the funnel is broken for them. And so it may not be that people aren't doing the right thing once they're on the site. It may be that people aren't even getting there in the first place. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that might tell people
That's
that they either need to, you know, tweak, if they're doing some paid ads, they might need to start to adjust those ads first, or that they
yes.
might need to ramp up, you know, their social media efforts or whatever marketing that they're currently doing for lead generation. That needs to be worked on first in order to
Yes.
get adequate traffic to the site, to then really be able to dig into what people are doing. Because like you said, if there's only 20 people going to your site, that's not really a good sample size to try to figure out, you know, how to improve it.
Right. And I say that because it's based on statistics. You said sample size. So it's based on what the probability of people making a decision is based on the changes you've made.
Yeah.
So, you know, like to answer the question a different way is, if you've got, let's say, a conversion funnel and you're driving tons of traffic, so you've got enough data, and so your averages are average. You know, it's not like today I've got a really high bounce rate and tomorrow like the bounce rate's like really low, and then that's confusing because the page is exactly the same. But if you've got a lot of visitors, the graphs even out and the percentages stay relatively the same. And so when you make a change, then that change will impact those percentages or those metrics pretty much instantly.
Right.
So,
you need to give it time to be able to have this large sample size where you're reaching a comfortable average, so that when
correct.
you do make a change, it's very evident right away, and you're not in this realm of your data going up and down because you're still at that leveling out point.
Correct. And the logical next question is, well, how do I know if the change actually made a difference or not?
Yeah.
So in Google Analytics, obviously you can track different days. So you switch your timing to that specific day that you've made the change, and you compare it to maybe the previous period. So you go, let's say you made a change 1st of Jan, it's now the 1st of February. So you've got 30 days of data. So, okay, from that change, what was the difference to the traffic in December?
Right.
And then you know what's the difference. The other thing is split testing. Do you want to go into split testing a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so what split testing is essentially is, let's say you've identified that you need a different video on a sales page, but you want to test the first video against the second video to actually see whether the second video is better in the market's eyes or in the people who are visiting the site.
Your audience.
Eyes. Yeah, your audience. Because, you know, we make videos or we make a change and we think it's the right thing to do, but really the only thing that we need to do is listen to the audience. And if the audience responds to that change in a positive way, then that was a good thing to do.
Yeah, and so the market's going to tell you whether or not you're headed in the right direction.
Right. And they'll tell you in the bounce rates, they'll tell you in the amount of time they spend, how long they consume the video, all of those stats that we spoke about before. So a tool that we use or that can be used for split testing is Google Optimize. It's also a free tool. It piggybacks off the Google Analytics account, and all the stats from the pages, from both the pages. So let's say you're split testing those 2 pages with 2 different videos. Google Optimize will help you to set those 2 pages up and split the traffic from one link. So if you've got 1,000 people going to a landing page and you want to split that traffic, Google Optimize will split it to 500 people on the one and 500 to the other, if you want a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
And then in your Google Analytics account, you'll be able to see which path actually is working better.
Right. Yeah. And then you can decide to, you know, kill the other one and then really dial in on the one that's performing better, and then keep optimizing your conversions from there, you know?
Correct.
Yeah.
And to answer your question from earlier, it's good to do one change at a time,
right,
and figure out whether that worked or didn't work, implement the one that worked, and then move on to the next thing. Yeah. So it's actually a strategy of saying, well, I think these elements or these, let's say 5-10 things need to be changed on this sales page. What's the priority in terms of what is the one item that's going to make the biggest difference, and work your way down that list in priority.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I was going to ask you too is, you know, business owners, they want to get their site running at top notch as soon as possible. Obviously, all of us would want to. And
Yeah.
so realistically, what is a regular business looking at for a time frame of, let's say they're starting from scratch, or they have never run analytics on their website before, and they do, and now they're seeing that there are all these areas for improvement. Realistically, how long are we talking before they can have a website that they feel is really tight and dialed in?
I'm smiling because I'm going to give you the consultant's answer. It depends.
Yeah.
It purely depends on the traffic that you've got on the site.
Yeah.
If you've got high volume, then you can make a change today, and you'll be able to see results within a couple of days, or even maybe the next day, or maybe even a couple of hours, right? It really depends. But if your site's not getting enough traffic, then that's going to take you a long time to figure out those averages and to get the stats that really make a difference.
Yeah.
But again, it's the long game, right? So you mentioned Facebook ads, and you mentioned driving traffic to your site using Google ads and all of these other wonderful things like social media. Those are important, and those can help speed up the process to figure things out. It does cost a little bit of money and maybe time, but doing it versus not doing it and just hoping that people will come to your site is the wrong way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, people aren't just going to come and find you and come knocking on your door unless you show them what you're offering and, bring them your way. It's very important. It's a mix of, in my mind, it's a mix of knowing when to use paid traffic, but also supporting that with really well-written value add, not necessarily even well-written, but just really great value add content, whether that be videos, whether that be a combination of videos and blogs and, things of that nature. But yeah, the paid traffic is only going to get you so far, and the content could be amazing, but if nobody can find it, then it doesn't matter. So these two things really need to work in synergy in order for you to get the most out of your efforts, in my opinion.
Correct. Yeah, no, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
And I want to also say, so inside of Google Analytics, you can see where the sources of traffic are. So, you've got organic visitors.
Yeah.
You've got social visitors. So there's coming from, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you've got your links out, and you've got your content. And then you've got, if you're running paid ads, it'll show you a paid ads as a source.
Yeah.
And what I like to look at, or something that I look at often, is the bounce rate higher on the paid ads versus the organic?
Yeah.
Because if your paid ads have a really high bounce and exit rate, then chances are the people that you're targeting in your ads are not the right people.
Yeah.
Because they've landed on that page and they're leaving because it's not maybe what they're looking for. They searched in Google, they came to the site, and it's not relevant. It's not in sync with what the ad said, maybe.
Right. And from a copywriter perspective, again, what I would say is if your organic content is getting really good, data, you're getting really good data and feedback from your organic content, but your paid ads are having trouble, just like to piggyback off of what you said, that you're not targeting the right people in your ads. And so I would say you need to dig into what your organic content is telling you and really drill down into the people that you're talking to in your organic content, and then make those ads talk to those people. So there's a disconnect somewhere between the two, is what that would tell me as a writer.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And again, to add to that, you probably tell I have a lot to say about this stuff.
Yeah.
To add to that, it's a thing of, if people are coming organically, right? So in Google Analytics, you can also go into the audience, and you can see where those people are coming from, what languages they speak, what devices are they using, the demographics. So what ages are they? Are they male? Are they female? Because Google's got the data, right? Most people are using a Gmail account, and so Google Analytics tabulates all that for you in a really easy table that says, okay, these people are doing X, Y, and Z, and this is who they are, and this is where you don't get their names and surnames and email addresses, which is obviously for privacy purposes. But that data, because if people are visiting your website, and let's say they're between 25 and 30, and they're from New Zealand, but you're marketing in the US, and if that's organic traffic, then there's definitely a disconnect. And the worst thing, if you're doing paid ads against a different demographic, but the people that are actually engaging with you commenting on your blog posts, opting into your forms, booking calls with you, or buying from your store is different, then you've got a problem.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to have to let you go because my house is getting very noisy. It's morning time and it's chaos. But I just wanted to take a second and be able to have you take the floor again and just let people know if they want to know more about what you do or if they have questions, how can they get in touch with you?
So my website's at bridge8.com. That's BRIDGEIGHT.com. You can get a hold of me there. I've got a book a consult call if anybody needs any help or any advice on Google Analytics or digital marketing in general. So go to bridge8.com/call. And feel free to book an appointment and let's chat. Let's see if we can help you. And then of course I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, like pretty much everywhere. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Burhaan. That was seriously so informative. I know it helped me a lot, and I hope that it helps all of you guys out there. I'm going to link all of his information down below in the comments. So if you want to get in touch with him, he's just a click away. And thank you again for your time today.
Ashley, thank you so much. Really a pleasure to be on this call with you.
Yeah.
Just to help your audience and just to get the message out.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Appreciate you. Thank you.